Welcome to the Frequency Ma podcast with Sheena Israel and Alyssa Ma. Frequency Ma is a sanctuary for the oracular and the ordinary. We explore the interwoven paths of mothering, embodied business and prosperity, self-creation and relationship, spiritual technologies like channeling and frequency keeping. Expect earth and insights to catalyze your quantum leaps. For the multi-dimensional, multi-passionates, all of you is welcome here. Journey with us. Hello and welcome to episode 12 of the Frequency Ma podcast. I'm so happy to be here today with Sheena and myself, weaving this episode where we will be touching on the energetics of 2024, some kind of feeling into this solstice processional and what is on offer for us here, as well as into this shift into the new Gregorian calendar year. And yeah, just observing, it really feels like this beautiful place to pause and to acknowledge the birth of this Frequency Ma as a temple space, truly a temple space that is in service to some of the more buoyant conversational aspects of the Ma frequency. And yeah, I just really want to pause and express deep gratitude for all of you who are here with us gathering in this digital quantum space. We feel you. And quite frankly, like, you are the reason that I'm showing up today in the midst of my own resistance in this solstice time frame where I feel deeply internal and have been feeling very compressed. Like, I was joking with myself earlier about being like, I'm a panini now at this point, because I've just been pressed between two plates has been the vibe the last week especially. So emerging now just in reflection and gratitude, and so happy to be here with you today, Sheena.
I'm excited too. Thank you. I love the panini press. As you said that, my mind was like immediately showing me like, no, break that, like just burst it into like all pieces of fractals. And yeah. And I don't know, like, okay, so I want to like just go straight into the procession if we can.
Yeah.
I don't maybe we could enter softly, but my mind's like, no, we need to talk about that right now. And you had mentioned it earlier before we hit record. And when you said this procession into solstice, I'm getting these visuals of, for thousands of years, people would gather together in procession and they would walk from sacred site to sacred site, or even if it's just from home to church or home to temple or home to the circle where the fire is, like where the community fire is or the community dining table. And it's like a time where we have where we really lean on one another together, especially in the northern hemisphere where it gets really cold and there is seemingly a lack of resources to nourish oneself. We do lean on the fire. We do lean on one another to harvest the food and to prepare the food. And I'm not even really wanting to talk so much about that because I feel that it's a time of just not consuming a lot, like quite naturally. But I'm getting this visual of people in a procession walking towards something, and that something does feel like a grand event, and it does feel like a celebration, but there's also some geometry there and some energetics there that's happening. And it's like when we talk about releasing to let go of what has happened in the past, or however we want to phrase that, and welcome in the new year, there seems to be, at least in like my physical orientation, how I work with these energies, that the procession and the movement together does matter. But we haven't really had that in a long time. So I feel that there's like at least for me, a bit of like a homecoming, internal homecoming experience that I'm feeling into. And I don't really know where to go with that yet, but that's just what I'm feeling. How do you view this procession?
Yeah. Well, I love that you said homecoming. And I also love that you reflected that you're just allowing it to be that kind of um, in this exploratory space where, or maybe not even exploratory, but just to be in the space of noticing, because I think that, this, or rather even I feel that this time is, if anything, it's a call to stillness, and it's a call to allowing for the void space to be unanswered. So it's like, um, and it's very interestingly overlaid by this, like, the shift into the new year, which is like our New Year's resolutions and like action, action, action. What can we do to transmute all of these uh, dreams into reality? And it's entirely premature. And so I want to invite everyone who is tuning in to really just allow the natural rhythm to emerge and to be witnessed, and to not succumb to the pressure of busyness and needing the kind of fixing energy, which I totally want to get into with the letting go. This is something that I've been um yeah kind of wrangling in my own experience, is that we have this kind of impulse to fix, and that can get really amplified in this shift into the new year. And I think allowing an expansiveness, so that when we orient to these celestial points like the winter solstice and the summer solstice, we have this kind of experience of being outside of time, and we can look in all directions. So we can experience the past as if it is present, because we're accessing the field of all information, and it is not bound by time or space. And so it's such a um, it's such a special place in which we can do so much so subtly, and through, not, we don't have to do elaborate rituals, we don't have to have anything but our own awareness. And one of the things that I want to offer in this kind of sea of spiritual invitation is that we really can keep it simple. So like when we're feeling into how we want to honor this solstice processional, and I do love that term, and I feel like it was directly derived from speaking with my brother and his family, his 7 children and his beautiful wife. They went on a like 26-mile walk, like through these different sacred sites there. Um, and yeah, it was so beautiful. It's a faith that is not mine. But I have such a deep and rich appreciation. And I do want to speak into that later in the episode, because I think one of the things that we've seen in 2024 that I think we'll see in 2025 is this deep yearning for different forms of creating temple space and honoring the sacred. And we're seeing a lot of return to the religion of our youth. We're seeing a lot of, just this deep craving for the sanctity of space. And so I want to definitely speak into that. But in terms of, excuse me, in terms of just kind of how to orient during this solstice time frame, I am inviting myself and anyone who feels resonant with this to just expand the experience of this time. And so, like, orienting to that solstice point allows us to receive the codes of the darkness, receive the codes of the mystery over a time that is governed by natural rhythm versus the inorganic kind of holiday schedule that's overlaid, where it's like, we're busy, busy, busy. We're going from holiday to holiday, however you celebrate that. And then it's the new year. And all of that is beautiful and can be experienced as well. But allowing the rhythm that is internally derived and that is given by nature to be what is setting your own internal pacing and how you and your specific way that you're animating consciousness relates to all of that holiday busyness. And so that can mean something like as simple as like walking outside and taking a breath of fresh air, when you're at a holiday gathering, or leaving 30 minutes earlier than you might have because, you're feeling obligated to stay because it's the holidays. Maybe your rhythm is inviting you to, take that half an hour back and just attuning to self. And so I think the formula that I always use when I'm kind of like, how do I navigate any experience, right? Like, how do I navigate back to my own inner um inner knowing and my inner core? How do I discover that? And it's really through a trifold process of noticing, allowing, and then attending or intending. So, either attending what's there. So if it's something that is excuse me, I'm just receiving my voice back. um but noticing what's there. And this is like, I don't mean to rush through these are all, their own moments, but noticing is a big one. A lot of times, especially in the holidays where we have this glitz and glaze that, covers over this very deeply internal time, it can be difficult to notice. We're out in stores, we're blasting music, it's very overstimulating. And yeah, I'm very interested. I would love to spend this time in Australia. So like I would shout out to our listeners in Australia because I wonder what the vibe is
Mm.
experiencing the solstice in the warmth and in this different seasonal orientation. But for us here in um the northern, what hemisphere are we in? The northern hemisphere. It's cold and it's very distinctly inward. And so um
Mhm.
yeah, I think that that first moment of noticing can be challenging, but it doesn't have to be. It can be just breathing, and the noticing is not mental. So noticing what sensation the body is experiencing and allowing yourself to not provide a lengthy story about it. So you don't have to mentalize it. You're just like, oh, I'm feeling cranky. Like I'm at this holiday gathering. I'm feeling cranky. You don't have to do anything about it. You don't have to fix it. You just notice that you're feeling cranky. And then you allow it. The next step two, allowing it. So you don't have to fix feeling cranky. You don't have to fix your feeling. You don't have to do anything about it. And then attending it is really wrapping your arms around that experience and surrounding it with love. So that can feel like, yeah, kind of giving yourself a warm hug. That can feel like, a variety of things, but listening to what that next step is. And typically that's where the action comes in. And that action can be a breath, it can be removing yourself from that situation. And it can also be the action of intention. So when it's not something that is, physically changing your inner or outer environment, then it can be intending that you, yeah, release that energy, or that you are redirecting that energy. So it can be a subtle quantum attunement of taking the energy that you've noticed and that you've allowed and then moving it. But trying to move the energy before noticing and allowing it can create more energy that you have to then tend to. And so taking your time with those two steps is that's my holiday recipe for survival. And yeah, I think that's what's on my mind and my heart the most to share around just this time, is that inward allowance and yeah, creating these spaces where the sacred can flow. And yeah, I'm curious what you're feeling into in terms of what we're working with 2024 energetics.
I love the sharing around that. We can use the word also presence, because it's also like this state of action and inaction. It is like, I feel, for me, when I tune into presence, it is like in between time. There's nothing to do, but also you're in everything all at once. And I was speaking with a friend recently. Our boys are similar, but they're friends, and we're just talking about presence, and we're talking about how, when you are around a child, and I don't want to like isolate anyone out of this experience, because I think it can be true for anyone, whether you are a mother or not. But if you are with anyone or work with anyone who if the intention of being with somebody is to hold space and not to shift or change before that witnessing, or before the I don't remember what word you used, but before just being with whatever is happening, from the outside, you have like perhaps a child that is screaming and like having this wild experience. And from the outside, as the space holder, it can look like you're not doing anything. You're just like letting them scream, letting them cry. And it sounds beautiful when we say it, but when you're actually in that moment, let's say you're in an airport or in a grocery store, or surrounded by this like collective consciousness of doing, of I'm here to get from point A to point B, or this is the way that we behave in this space, or whatever it is. And you have this energy that is like saying, this is too much. I need to release all of this energy. And you can witness that within someone, and within a child. Usually this is what happens. And if you just allow it, you are in this intense experience of presence where all of this energy is moving through you, and you are at least for me, I know that when this has happened to me, or when I've been in this experience, I am receiving so much information, and it looks like I'm doing nothing, and I'm just watching, and I'm just being there. And when I don't fix that, right, when I don't put a band-aid on it, when I don't tell somebody, like there might be an occasion where it's like, especially if the child is small enough, I can, it's like, I'm going to pick you up and we're going to go over here, because right now we're in the middle of a sidewalk or something, right? But just allowing it and not fixing it and not changing it, it just goes through its natural process, and then it's complete. And then we don't have this I don't know, I don't want to say mess, but we don't have this, as you were saying, like when you try to move the energy before you're present with it, what ends up happening is either the embodiment of the energy that is actually just meant to flow. Like, we're not containers, we are vessels. It's meant to flow. So we either embody that and that becomes something else. Perhaps we can call it trauma to release one day, or either way, it becomes like this collection that feels for me like tension. And I feel like when we're talking about releasing, for me, it's like, I wonder if what we're needing to do is just kind of like get into those spaces where there's tense, tension and like dissolve it a little, create flow, create movement. And I feel that's done differently for everybody, but I like how you shared your own personal recipe, right? And for me, it's very similar, especially in times like these holiday seasons. There's a lot of things that we in my home move through. And I like to honor everything and honor all of the ancestral traditions that that is like braided within my being, while also not feeling beholden to them based on any kind of construct that is outside of myself. And that is like, that can really create tension in the family unit and in the dynamic. And I find myself as the bringer of that change and the space holder of like the one who is witnessing the tension for it. But I'm also like, when I back down from that role because of pressure or discomfort, it creates a lot of toxicity within my body and within my home. And so it's like, it's almost easier to just be with the tension as it arises, breathe through it, send love to it. And I'm not at all saying like, love and light your way through it. It's not a love and light kind of like, there is light and there is love in this movement and in this witnessing of energy, but it is like deeply challenging often. And yeah, I feel that sometimes, just to admit for myself, sometimes I just want to go into a position of just being like, do what I say. Like, I know best. Like, let's correct the situation. But and then that's not true. And then that, like, even recently, a couple days ago, I was in a situation where something was arising within my reality. And it was just like, kind of had hit my limit of like allowing and witnessing without tending to my needs first. And I tried to move the energy, as you say, before it was ready, and just backfired on me like completely. And then I've been in that space of dissolving that tension that I created for myself by trying to force something before it was ready. But it's that tension is like in my body. Nobody else is experiencing it. I am. And I'm just like, I know why I did what I did and said what I said. And I also know that I'm not wrong in that. The energy was not prepared. It wasn't ready. It wasn't held properly. I couldn't hold it because I wasn't nourished enough. Somebody else needed to hold that energy. It couldn't have been me unless I was just going to be in it, and in that witnessing, in that presence. And I feel like it's a really juicy place to like discuss and just share about through. I don't know, because we can give our recipes for how to move through this time, while also understanding that sometimes we don't follow our own recipe, and then like it really shows up for us later. And that's, we all experience that, right? It's yeah. um and then when you're speaking of like coming back to the religions of our youth, I feel that where I want to go with that is that it's not really about the religion, that it's about the truth that's woven into all of these spaces and all of these traditions. There's something and I think that we touched on this a bit with Emron in our last episode, and maybe even with Hannah, but there is something that is really guiding us into these spaces. And I do feel that it is at this time where it becomes really strong. I know for myself it does, and I like to witness that within myself without, I guess, as I said, being beholden to the way that it was done. because there's so much distortion and illusion wrapped in and around so much of what we call tradition. It doesn't matter if it's religious or not. Like even even when we get into the conversation around ancestral foods, like literally the entire earth is ancestral foods. Everything that comes from this planet is an ancestral food. It doesn't have to be derived in one specific arena of like dogma. And I feel that that's true about celebration and religion and all of that. So I feel that I went on like so many tangents already.
No, I love that that noticing around the call to gather during this time is very strong. And I think that where I'm really feeling within myself a deep healing is that I can meet the religion of my youth. I can meet all of these variety of different religious expressions with deep appreciation and with a yeah, to experience the truth that was hidden, that was so carefully hidden, these kind of secret truths that were woven in and are still shimmering through the fabric of illusion, in many of our religious texts. And I think that, this gets into this kind of I don't know if I want to say like 2025 prediction, but like what I think we'll be seeing in 2025 and beyond is um probably in the kitchen. Um is that, this is the era of visibility, and by which I mean um, etheric visibility, right? We have, as we're anchoring in these higher sensory capacities like telepathy and all of the clairs, like all of the ways in which we can immediately experience the oneness of all things. Um, we are going to see more and more revealed, like nothing can be hidden. And so, we're seeing this, I think, a lot in the new age, where like, or even in the new age conspiracy adjacent community in which I reside. There's a lot of, kind of dogma around like how the reveal will happen, whether this is around like extraterrestrials or, celestial beings, is that there's going to be like some, watershed moment where like all is revealed. And it's like, it's happening incrementally and it's happening through us. It's not through some governmental agency that's pulling the curtain off of, some project, or it's not through the Diddy list. It's not through, Elon Musk revealing it's like, it's through our own inner capacity that we are developing through presence, through that, that formulaic trifold presencing, where we are, yeah, we're noticing, we're allowing, and within the allowing, we're accepting, right? We're accepting what is, and then we are intending what's next and directing the energy. And I think that, this is how we develop the ability to navigate this new age, is just through this very simple practice of presencing. And through that, we will be seeing more and more and more of what is hidden, what has been historically hidden. So ways in which people have been able to deceive us will start to, those methods, and within our own kind of bag of tricks as well, how we've tried to, we've deceived ourselves or we've deceived others. We won't be able to use these tools anymore, and we're already seeing that. And so, as much as it can be tempting to allow this kind of external heroing of like, oh, there's going to be some big reveal, and beyond that point, we will all be free. That freedom is claimed. It is claimed through our own inner experiencing. And the ways in which we are transforming at this point in our evolutionary ascension journey are so subtle. Like it is those subtle, subtle residues. And the call for me is really to meet those places. And this is where we were talking before the episode about like me being not necessarily triggered, but like this idea of like releasing or letting go, like this is the time of release or letting go. And while that kind of that works for me when I'm dealing with an energy that's perceptibly outside of myself, like it, for instance, like I'm at a park and there's a dark presence that is out of alignment with the harmony of the field that I'm tending for myself and my children. I can work with that and I can release that to the cosmic mother. I can compost that energy. Like there's a way that I can move that energy that feels very easeful and organic. But when it comes to something like density that's in my body, um, which also I don't know if we'll have time to get into this, but or if we do like another deep dive, but density also meaning like physical weight, like physical aspects of my body. When I'm trying to meet density in my own body, just like releasing it, it feels like a disembodied action. It's like and it feels like that, like you were sharing, like this premature um invitation to energy that needs to be tended to where it lies. So it's like the noticing of the density. I need to go in and I need to meet it and spend time with it and accept it and listen to what it has to say. And also without mentalizing, and so that's been a shift for me to move into uh a process where, and it's just that subtle thing of like, I just don't like the words letting go, like let it go and release. Sometimes like when you're meeting things like that, these like kind of spiritual invitations or ways that we can work with energy, and you're meeting uh, a term or a process that just doesn't feel right in some way, it doesn't feel aligned in some way, just like flip it, choose a different word and see if that works. Because we're operating this realm of duality where the same statement is true depending on the cosmic context and the tone in which it's delivered. So we can say like human beings are inherently so simple, and that's true, right? But we can also say human beings are inherently so complex. It's also true. These are two, in the realm of the 3D and of, logic. These are opposing truths, and yet we hold them both. And that is our aim in this age, is to reconcile what appears to be opposite into the coherence of the fabric of, yeah, our actual physical vessels.
Mhm.
Um, so
Yes. I
yeah.
feel like that is like also the unification process of bringing all into the loving spectrum, the unconditional love or the compassion or the grace is all things belong, and they have a role and a purpose, and it's really about how we choose to create with that energy and what we want to do with it. So if we're even talking about density in the physical body, right, if we even touch on that for a moment, it's we can enter the realms of like choose differently, choose to see it differently. But I think that there's an element of loving it as well. Like I know for myself that when I have how do I work around it? It's like, what do I say here? I feel that sometimes releasing can carry the codes of rejection,
Yeah.
and that's not helpful because that energy is there for a reason. Maybe it's insulation, maybe the physical vessel or energetically, everything is energy first, right? So maybe there was a time and a space where felt unsafe. And so some insulation arrived, physically, because maybe I wasn't able to tend to it because my awareness was elsewhere, or I wasn't being present with it, or maybe I was, and it wasn't enough. And I can tend to those dense places, whether they are in physical form or just in my auric field, with grace and with love and with understanding that they have a purpose, and maybe I don't need them anymore, but that doesn't mean that I need to reject them. I can say, like, thank you. How would you like to be? I don't know. How do we make that transmute the energy? How do we make it new? Because the energy is not going anywhere. We just need to choose to create with it differently. And I mean, it is a choice, but it's also a process. And perhaps we, as human beings, get to come into the mastery of being able to, snap our fingers and have it just be complete so easily. But maybe we're not there yet, and it's okay. There's like, with these, in this time, with the more darkness and needing to be a little bit slower, there's a lot happening, like, under the soil, right? There's a lot going on right now, and we are in a space that feels, or maybe that looks, less active, but it's not. We're just not seeing it so much, and there's really nothing for us to do but to be present within ourselves. And I don't know how this also goes back to rituals and traditions around holiday seasons, or really anything, but I find that my recipe and traditions tend to be in a place of presence, but they tend to be focused on what is it, that I love so much. Like, what is even using the language that used around, like, the religion from your youth, which I don't know what that is, but for me, there's like the sensory stimulation. So it's taking a breath of cold air, allowing myself to feel the snow or to witness the frost. It's the flame of a candle or a fire. It's the smell of incense, like frankincense and myrrh. Those take me to a place that is not just of one reality. It is very multidimensional, and yeah, the subtle realms, as you said, this big reveal it is happening through us. And I personally have been witnessing this within myself quite rapidly in 2024. I feel like in 2023, it was a little bit slower. The years passed a little bit slower, but this year has been more rapid. And not to get again into predictions, but I feel it's going to be more intense in 2025. And perhaps there can be this big reveal, like, externally, but I think it just depends on what we are tending to, what we are being present with. And looking back, or being present with the energies of 2024, I feel like, wow, what the holy procession has this entire year been, right? And also, I know, because of how we are moving as like a system through the cosmos, it is going to intensify. It can't not. We are being blasted. every life form on Earth is joining the party. Everything will be made seen in a new way, and perhaps in an old way at the same time, and we're merging. And I don't even know if I'm saying anything concrete right now, but it feels in my mind, it's like we just need to For myself, I have just been telling myself I need to accept that and acknowledge that what I'm experiencing is real, and it doesn't have to be about anything or anyone else, and that gets to be good enough. And then there's this like energy of just like, okay, moving forward, I am open, I acknowledge, I receive, so let's see what happens.
Yes, I feel like that's a big trap with spiritual girlies, is this kind of like um illusory orientation to um our needing to understand how our internal mechanisms are holding different patterns in place versus just allowing and accepting. I love that we're just weaving this theme of noticing and allowing and accepting and um, kind of, yeah, drawing out that holy pause that in which change really occurs. It's not just this, letting go, which is like, feels like an act of violence. It's like, how does that actually happen? And it's through, multiple moments. And I love how you reflected that, like, there doesn't need to be a discernible story or a way that I think this is something that comes up in the holiday season too, is that we're making small talk with people who um are, not maybe as woo-woo as we are. And so you can quickly find yourself back in patterns of consciousness that are rooted in victimhood and like celebrating victimhood, which is the martyr, right? Like this like big time martyrdom moments in the holiday circuit, I feel. And it's how we connect, right? This is like a very entrenched pattern of connection, is like, oh, it's so hard. And yeah, it's been such a hard year. And this is, it's like, it's so easy to fall into that way of connecting and, creating a connection with someone with whom um yeah, perhaps you yeah, don't resonate on, different other planes. And so that's like the default. um but I think that, it's interesting to, yeah, witness ourselves, maybe go into that and go like, oh, I'm putting a story on an experience that I had that isn't true in order to meet this moment in a way that feels comfortable. And so I like how you said earlier in the episode about witnessing the tension.
Mm.
And so I think there's big codes in, I mean, especially this year, wow, about not resisting discomfort, not thinking. I think this was like a big thing around like ease, and definitely like this is kind of part of my brand is like the easeful luxury and luxuriating, and like everything's easeful and flowing. And it is like the orgasmic field surrounds us. And what is an orgasm? An orgasm is the inflow of cosmic energy without blockage. Like it's the free flowing energy of the cosmos, which is blissful. But that being said, we're not here to be in that field. We're here to transmute the actual fabric of this reality so that that energy can flow. And in doing so, we have to meet the density, we have to meet the discomfort. And so we cannot bypass that and just be blissed out all the time. Like we have to witness the tension. And
Mm.
so this is the perfect place to practice. This is the perfect playground to practice witnessing the tension, holding space for it. And um, yeah, I love how we've kind of unpacked that term holding space, because I feel like that's like really played. And like, what is holding space? It's like really tuning your presence into what is needed there. And it will look observably like nothing, like you shared, but attuning to that subtle mechanism of like, how can I allow and accept this and listen to this? And then from there, you feel the drop, you feel the now, okay, now I can intend to move this energy, and like allowing it to move in a spiral. Because I think, yeah, that trap, when I get trapped into those moments where I am speaking out of turn, or I'm, acting, in manners that are creating more separation. And I felt earlier in your sharing, around this kind of masculine feminine dynamic, like perhaps how we speak to our partners, our ex-partners, our, you know, um, where we are calibrating our own inner feminine and masculine energetics as part of this inner harmonization, is that we are trying on new ways of being, which is like, do it, try the new thing. Like, there's no wrong thing. You can speak out of turn. You can, yeah, go on a bad date and experience like, oh, this was very out of alignment. Like, follow your own inner curiosity and desire, and allow that it doesn't have to perfectly lead you to this kind of, harmonic experiencing of bliss. Like, that we are being led through yeah, a spiral of experiencing that it cannot be broken, it cannot be corrupted. And so, like, the choice, like, I think so often we hold ourselves back from taking action because we want to take that perfect next step. And a lot of time it's like, just take the next step. And that next step might be, excuse me, I think earlier I like unmuted myself to cough, so sorry. Um, but yeah, taking that the sting of wrongness out of your, allowing your desire to lead you, and allowing it to lead you in ways that are messy or imperfect. And um as we are calibrating all of this influx of light, it's part of that divine design to act and behave in ways that are unusual to our systems, because we're calibrating our vessels to hold new energies. And so, you know um a time where, like, you are, yeah, in an old dynamic with an ex-partner, for instance, and you speak sharply because in the past you have been overly quiet, you've been overly acquiescent. And so then you're like, well, I'm going to try this thing. And you're going from here to here. This is, excuse me. That's funny. My throat, acting up right now. But, uh, and that experience where you're trying something new, you're trying something on the other pole, it doesn't define you. It doesn't, you're not like that, you're not that bitch now. Like, it's just, try that out. Try out an experience that also creates a different disharmony. The acquiescence and the not speaking up creates disharmony. The, like, I'm not going to attend to any of the context or the timing or, the my own energy. I'm just going to, like, say the thing that needs to be said because I'm like, I'm going to say it now. And that's great. Like, try that and, like, do it badly and forgive yourself and love yourself through it, because we're all just making it up. We're all just making it up. We're all just, trying new things. And it will, as you allow yourself to act and behave in ways that are unfamiliar to your system, you will naturally calibrate to a space of integration. And so I think that, like, encouragement to, um, even in this time of stillness, this, solstice, processional, there's still ways in which we are moving energy. Like, we are attuned to the subtleness, the slowness. We're allowing more, pauses between activities. But there's still energy that needs to be moved. And so, allowing that, during this time, we can allow ourselves and then even invite ourselves into new ways of being and acting. And we have this beautiful blanket of mystery surrounding us, like this deep warmth that can only be found in this season. And, because it's sourced internally, and allowing that to be this like relentless inner flame of forgiveness, for the ways in which we think we're inadequate, or we think that we fucked up and we didn't, hold space in the correct way, or, whatever it is, all of these, um, not only the rules and patterns of, our, um, indoctrination, or whatever you want to, the ones that we're trying to transmute, not only those, but also the ones that we're imposing on ourselves from a spiritual point of view, and saying like, well, I have to meet this new standard because I want to be of service. And like these very, beautifully intended practices that we fail, like that's okay. That's part of the process, and, allowing that as well. And I feel like that's a big invitation to this season, is just this like relentless gathering around the inner flame of this relentless flame of forgiveness, not needing to fix ourselves, allowing this need to fix is really just consenting to the pattern itself. It's reinstantiating that pattern. And so when we give up trying to fix, and we allow and we surround that thing, whatever it is, that our way of being flaky, our way of not showing up for ourselves, our way of whatever, surround it with love. It's like only then can the real need emerge. It's like this, like, I like to do persona play with these things, where it's like, if it's a feeling of shame, like let it have a name, let it have a face. And I really hate those movies that like, what is it, Inside Out or whatever, where they try to like personify these emotions. I don't know why. I just have a big problem with these movies, but I do like to do that with my own inner experiencing, and allow like this this emotion has a specific texture and orientation. And it's only when you soften to that, and you just, without needing it to change, you fully accept it. You say, it's okay that I feel shame. I feel shame. I'm going to accept that I feel that. And then it will tell you what it needs. It will tell you exactly what it needs. And it's the desire behind it that so often we close up. And this is how we create these like energetic seals. And you hear of that a lot in new age communities, of like seal removal and things like that, which feels, again, can feel a bit violent. But it's like, these seals are instantiated through our own patterned behavior, and it's through an eclipsing of our ability to, or our willingness to express desire. And I meet this a lot with my daughter. Will oftentimes say, like, we were driving in the car the other day, last night even, and she's like, Mama, and then she'll go like, never mind. And I'm like, what? It's important. I want to hear what you have to say. And then she'll express a desire for something that she thinks that I will say no to. And so before she's stating it, she's pulling it back.
Mm.
And so this is how these seals like thicken and coagulate, and um, you know, occlude our energy bodies, and it's through this like denial of the expression of desire, because we think it will not be fulfilled. And so allowing, when we notice and allow these spaces of density to soften, and then that desire can emerge. It doesn't need anything. It doesn't need to be fulfilled. It just needs to be noticed and expressed. And so, allowing that, in this time of potential busyness, and, meeting energies and consciousnesses that are, yeah, perhaps not as attuned to the experience of stillness that you're seeking, like loud energies when you're wanting to just be, you know, at home and cozy, not allowing your desire to go unspoken, allowing it to pass through your lips, what you want, even if it can't, even if you think you really like, there's a really, really, you know, sticky thought form that's like, you cannot have this.
Mhm.
State what you want. State what you want in the face of that really deep opposition, and especially in the face of that deep opposition. And, that's where those seeds of transformation arise from.
Yeah. I feel, just to like even go back to that experience that I shared around creating tension through the forcing, is that even with what you just said, speak what you want, like use your voice and do that. And to just use my own example of perhaps what to do next or what not to do, which is to, I'm learning from my own experience in this, where there was a moment where consciousness was provoked. It was provoked to arise. And I responded to that with the embodiment of my power. And I spoke what needed to be said. The next thing was where the mistake happened, or not really the mistake, right? Just be graceful and allow it to be, was to expect for that to be met, but it wasn't. So we can say what we need, but we cannot expect another to receive it. And that's kind of well, they're going to receive it, and maybe we can't expect them to receive it in any specific way. And that's kind of like some of these, even, I don't want to say laws of manifestation, but perhaps like structures of manifestation, is like to speak into existence what is this true desire, but then maybe not regulate how it shows up, because that's gonna go through some filters that maybe are not in our highest and best truth for the future. Maybe it needs to show up in another way. We need to be open to miracles to be showing up in ways that we can't yet perceive. And that's kind of I feel the magic of like evolution. It's like things get to change and they get to show up in ways that we can't yet perceive, because we're not there yet. We're not at that frequency yet. And so it gets to be miraculous,
Yeah.
which is really just, I don't know, it's to be in the state of like discovery and delight. And
Yeah.
so I had, and I'm like almost to a fault sometimes able to acknowledge my role in something. And by to a fault, I mean sometimes, in the past, the story is that I take on more than what is mine. So I'm releasing that so that I do not model that for my child, and also so that I don't continue that pattern. But what what happened was, I did expect that to be received in a specific way, and it wasn't. And then I kind of continued with that energy rather than just like letting it go. And um, it was this really interesting experience of like, you can show up differently in a relationship. Doesn't matter what that is, with a person, with a community, with a tree, within yourself. And if it is new, or if those patterns have not been, well entrenched, then there might be some challenge energetically in how that flows. And so in these moments of witnessing, the tension arise, and I'm feeling it, and I can kind of feel this like feminine rage like sort of bubble up in me, and like I will be heard, like it will be. But then also understanding that like maybe the power of that voice is not for everyone. And so I kind of like hold it back in, not in a sense of silencing, but in a like, there was a profound sovereignty there, where then I spoke into, yeah, I think I had said something like, we do not agree here. That's totally okay. Sorry for trying to force this. And that was that. And then it ended, and everything else was fine. On my end, though, I did not release that.
Mm.
I think not even until now, how we're speaking to one another and how you're like giving me that reflection of grace. Like I have been going to sleep at night still thinking about how, as you said, I was that bitch, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it was like 3 minutes. It wasn't even that long, but it affected me because that's not my normally how I react or respond or whatever it is. And so I've been like, how do I release this? Why am I still holding it? And I think this is to weave it all back and circle it all back to the point of being pulled together. It is
Mm.
in, we didn't have to discuss this at all, but it is in your reflection of saying we need to be graceful with ourselves
Mm.
that is allowing me to see, like, oh, yeah, it's that. It's that for me. It's like mentally, I can say I need to let this go, but
Yeah.
it's not mental, it is embodied.
Yeah.
And that's where the dissolving and the grace needs to come from. And that is like, I don't know why these, ecstatic moments or like the orgasmic expression comes up, but I feel that it does have to do with where we are moving as a planetary body through the cosmos. And so many people are talking about solar flares. And a couple months ago, I did like an energetic transmission around the solar flares and how to work with them. And we, in that like small group of working with it, we each were able to arrive to a place of when the solar flares were happening to receive orgasmic expression, as we can allow those energies to move through our bodies. And that's what it is. It is plasmic light meeting
Yeah.
plasmic light. And that's what we are as well. And it was it was through tuning into the frequency of grace where that orgasmic expression was allowed, because otherwise it feels tense and we're holding in. It's like, what's happening? These solar flares are intense. I can't sleep. I feel crazy. But instead, if you move into that tension with, and you take a deep breath, right? And you tune into like, it's okay that I'm feeling this tension. Let's just kind of be with it. Let's witness it. Let's move through it. Then these plasmic expressions move through the body and we can experience this orgasmic bliss. And yeah, it's fascinating.
Well, I love that. Yeah, this tying in the tension with the orgasmic experience, because it the expression of orgasm requires tension, right? It's not like, because I think so often we see these things as like, bliss is over here, discomfort is over here. But when we put it in terms of orgasm and tension, then all of a sudden we can start to see the closer interplay, and it's like it's this cosmic dance, and it's like we get to be these like surfers of these plasmic waves where we're like we are in this beautiful, beautiful dance. And it doesn't mean that if we're not experiencing this time as orgasmic that we're doing it wrong, but there's an invitation to play with the energies in different ways. And yeah, oh gosh, there's something you said that I wanted to reflect on in terms of, meeting the experience of the self embodying a fierce energetic. This is like back to episode 1, dark goddess energy, which is like when, we're calibrating to holding these dark goddess energies, and it's fucking powerful. And we haven't been allowed to express these safely for millennia. And so, and we have to, as part of this integration process, like we need to come to a place where we can channel whatever energy needs to be channeled to bring harmony. And sometimes that is a ferocity that feels uh, very, very, very powerful, and can be interesting to experiencing oneself expressing in a way that is so cosmically powerful and embodied. Like even I could feel it, even probably not at half as powerful as it was in that moment, but when you restated what you said, I feel that power and that ferocity. But then when the environment doesn't like kind of like their hair isn't blown back, as it should be, like their eyebrows singed off, then you're kind of like, was that like that was powerful? Why is the world not shifting to meet that?
Yeah.
But so, and this is like a little mini history on my girlhood and feeling like a deep sense of invisibility because of my power not being met by the
Yeah.
external, not being reflected like, um, and I think it's a way in which many of us move through life going like, I expressed the fullness of my embodied power and the environment, like nary a ripple in the external environment. Like, what is this? And I think a big part of it is that like the ripple is so quantum that it's imperceptible. And it's also, it is being received. And oftentimes it's being received by that person's avatar self. And it's like so big that it's like one of those whistles that you do that only certain people can hear. It's at such a high frequency that it cannot be received in this here and now moment. And so it's like, you're speaking to the consciousnesses that are, overlighting that person's um, in the moment expression. And so it's like, this is something that I'm just now in my life understanding that, like, when I'm communicating to people, that there's going to be a discrepancy in how I'm showing up and then how they're immediately reacting. And as I kind of tune into like the the subtle realms of how our fields interact, then I can start to affirm for myself that, oh yes, like I did speak in alignment. But it's like we do seek those relays. We seek those relays to feel real. And like it can feel so profoundly isolating. I've spent a lot of my life feeling like isolated and like unperceived, because like when I do act in ways that are profoundly aligned, there's just like there's a void of response. And so it's like allowing ourselves to tune into the subtle layers of like resounding response, and like the angels are singing for us as we step into this, these new layers of embodiment. um it's very confounding, I think, especially during this time, but it's also like those are the sites of profound change as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think in these moments we just if we can practice presence, like we can, I suppose, minimize mm, the stickiness. Maybe the stickiness kind of, like you're not gonna like slowly rip a band-aid off, right? You're gonna kind of like maybe put some water or soap or oil or something on that. And I feel that that was my lesson in this moment. It's like, as I'm having a hard time letting this go, I'm like, what did I learn here? What is this for me? Yeah, how is this for me? And I find that that's not coming from a place of um blaming anyone or anything. It's just like I that is my choice. I choose to learn from my experiences. And yeah, and that's not really the embodiment of release, right? That's how did I learn from this? So how can I take that pocket of energy that was very tense and create something new with it? And even as we speak, that's what's happening. And when I was even able to speak with my son about it after, because like he was present for that, and like asking him how he was feeling, and he was just like, letting me know that his perception was not like he could feel the tension, but his perception was not that there was anything wrong happening. There was nothing bad happening. It was just like this felt tense. And um, he said that he was proud of me for, um, he likes to call me the grand mediator because he's like, I know that you wanted something and you don't usually force your opinions on people. And you didn't, even though you wanted it. He's like, I'm proud of you for that. It's like, that's really sweet. And I don't know how that unfolds more for him, but it's, yeah, I feel like there is this narrative around, um, we want to protect our children from conflict. At the same time, I feel that because it does exist in the world, it is also important for children to see how to move through that gracefully and how to move through that without giving away their power. You know, like it's, I didn't give any power away in that moment. I simply understood that it wasn't going to be received. And so I stopped asking for it in that direction. Yeah. So anyway, it's like, there was something else I wanted to respond with what you said, but for whatever reason, you know, I think it's because we are heading into um, these kind of like obligatory gatherings for a lot of people, and hence conversations may arise. And so perhaps that's why I'm feeling so drawn to give a specific example of how like I tried something new, how I was met with tension, and how I like stopped, you know, with grace and with compassion and with love for the other individuals involved. There's a lot of love there. It's not as if I'm angry about what happened. It's more about like, I don't know, there's like, I'm already like shifting here because there's this feel that there's even earlier in my life, there is also this tendency of saying like, well, we're having small talk and maybe this group of people can't meet me in the multidimensionality of this, you know, world that I might like to explore in and be curious about. But that doesn't mean that they can't, and it also doesn't mean that I need to reject them. If we can, as you said, try something new, you can speak into what you want, you can say what you feel, and if they're not able to meet you in that moment, it's okay. We don't need to reject them. It's totally okay because the ripple, as you said, is quantum.
Yes.
And we don't need to expect how that unfolds. And I think that that's kind of where we get ourselves trapped in the stickiness of cycles, anyways, when we have an expectation that something is going to unfold.
Sourcing for ourselves the deep wisdom and simplicity. And so like not needing everything to be like quantumly attuned, because guess what, it is anyway. But like the acts of like preparing a meal together with people with whom you share a blood bond, you know, is so, so beautiful. And I got to experience that this last week. And you know, so it's like the spaces in between where our minds get in the way of us experiencing that inflow of harmony and delight, you know, and there are so many ways to appreciate the simple moments of togetherness, even amidst, you know, very diverse opinions and thought forms and things like this. And then, you know, the way in which our children are these like incredible barometers of truth in any situation, reflecting back
Yeah.
our state of consciousness. But I think, for now we're at a beautiful time to wrap up, and I think invite everyone into, yeah, we'd love to hear from you. I mean, this is a shared field, and we would love to hear from you if you are tuning in. Yeah, send us a note. We'd love to just hear, yeah, what you're resonating with, and we do intend to kind of close out this season, and we'll perhaps have a 13th episode airing on the solstice. So we're feeling into that, and then we'll have a brief pause, and we will start to build a calendar for our next season. And so we just, yeah, love to invite you into this pause, to reflect on, yeah, what you're receiving, what nourishment you're receiving from the space, what you'd love to see in the coming season. And yeah, just profound gratitude for everyone who is here weaving with us. And yeah, just wishing everyone a beautiful and nuanced and true loving procession toward this solstice point. And thank you
Mhm.
for being here as well, Sheena.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm feeling the movement of the procession. It's like a beautiful journey. And yeah, I feel like the guidance wants to just invite perhaps myself, perhaps you, perhaps everyone into just this understanding that wherever you step, the ground shows up. Just
Yes,
take your steps, take them mindfully, receive your breath, and um, we're all here. Yeah. Thank you.
perfect. All right, we'll see you next time.